Hey, you guys, we're ready to talk about Adolf Hitler. Okay, so hopefully you remember that right at the end of World War One, the German Empire was collapsing. The leader of the German Empire, the king, freaked out and ran away, and everything kind of fell apart. Well, a new a whole new constitution was written and a new republic was made. And that was called the Weimar Republic. And it was actually the Weimar Republic that signed the Treaty of Versailles. You know, that was where they agreed. I spelled that wrong. Whatever. The Treaty of Versailles, that's where they agreed to pay all the reparations. Well, that was the Weimar Republic because the German Empire had collapsed. A new constitution had been written. So there's no more Germany. It's now Weimar. It's the Weimar Republic. Okay. They had the Weimar Republic was led by a chancellor. A chancellor is a prime minister. It's just they called it a chancellor. So the Weimar Republic, if we're doing a political scale of okay, far left, far right, the Weimar Republic was a centrist government. They didn't have too far left leaning. Remember, the extreme left is communist, the extreme right is fascist. And there's lots of space in between. Like people can lean kind of to the left, but they're not necessarily communist. People can lean to the right, they're not necessarily fascist. There's all this space in between. Well, in the middle, those people are called centrist. And the Weimar Republic was led by a centrist government. But if you remember, there's a whole bunch of unrest going on right now at the end of World War I. We've talked about what was happening in the Soviet Union. We've talked about what was happening in Italy. Those were pretty extremes. Well, the Weimar Republic is trying to stay kind of in the middle. But there are a whole bunch of people on this side, on the left, that are really angry with the government because they think that it's not left enough. And there are a whole bunch of people on the right that are really mad at the government because they think the government is not right enough. So there are all kinds of people really, really angry with the government. It's not really the government that they're so mad at. They're using the government as a scapegoat. Everyone's angry about their loss in World War I. Everyone's angry about the Treaty of Versailles. And they're focusing their anger on the government. They're saying it's all the government's fault. And this government didn't even exist during World War I. This is all new government. But everybody wants somebody to be mad at. Just like when something is going wrong in your life, how often do you actually do self-reflection and decide that really things are going bad because you've made poor decisions? I bet you never do that. Everybody blames their problems on someone else. So all the left, everyone on the left is blaming the Republic. Everyone on the right is blaming the Republic, and they're all saying all the problems are because of this new government. Then in 1923, their economy collapsed. They fell behind on reparations. Let's see, economy collapsed, and they fell behind on their reparations. What does that mean? To fall behind means to not be able to make. They weren't able to make their reparation payments. And when they weren't able to make their reparation payments, France sent troops to occupy an area called the Ruhr Valley. So now France has sent troops and is basically saying, this belongs to us now. Well, when that happened, the workers from the Weimar Republic, the Weimar workers refused to work. They just quit working because France has sent troops to take over their area. Well, when the workers refused to work, the government, the Weimar government, continued to pay them, even though they weren't working. But how did they do that? They just printed more money. All they did was print more money to give to these people. But when you do that, when you simply print more money, it makes the money worthless. Money has value because there's not a lot of it. If there's too much money actually in circulation, if there are too many bills, then it makes the money lose its value. And because the money lost its value, prices went up. Something that cost, their dollar is called the mark. It's not a German dollar, it's a German mark. Something that cost 100 marks in 1923. By 1924, that same thing cost 94,000 marks. That's how much prices went up. This is called inflation. When I like to use my coffee mug as an example. So this coffee mug, what if today this coffee mug cost me 500 tenge? And this time next year, this exact same coffee mug cost me 944,000 tenge. Well, that's what happened to them. People lost their entire life savings. Everyone was upset. Things were really bad. Finances were terrible. Well, in swoops, Great Britain and France, and Great Britain, France, and the United States all agreed to kind of help the Weimar Republic. They agreed to help them work out their deal. Great Britain and France agreed to lower the price that the Weimar Republic owed them, and the United States agreed to lend them the money. Because let's say I owe I'm trying to think of a teacher you all know. I owe Mrs. Perozzo $500, but I don't have $500. So Mrs. Perozzo says, okay, I'm going to change your debt to me. I'm going to lower it to $300. You owe me $300, but I don't have $300. So Dr. Craig loans me $300 that I can pay Mrs. Perozzo. That's how it worked. The Weimar Republic owed Great Britain and France a whole bunch of money. They didn't have the money. Great Britain and France said, okay, we'll lower the amount that you owe us. And the Weimar Republic was like, I still don't have that money. And that's when the United States said, we'll loan you the money so that you can pay Great Britain and France back. And when that happened, the Weimar Republic really began to prosper. Things started getting really, really good for them until 1929. What happened in world history in 1929? You should all know this. Don't forget it for the rest of your life. In world history in 1929, the Great Depression hit. The Great Depression hit Germany, hit the Weimar Republic really, really hard. And people started immediately panicking and thinking things were going to go back to as bad as they were in 1923. And it was bad in 1923. At this time, everyone's freaking out. This strong, well-speaking leader came into power. He was young, he was attractive, he was a good speaker, he was an army veteran. Everybody wanted to listen to him, and his name was Adolf Hitler. And Hitler was ready to make Germany great again. Adolf Hitler despised, that means truly, truly hated, despised the Weimar Republic. And he would give these passionate speeches about how awful the Weimar Republic is. He joined this group in 1919. So I was talking about 1923, but in 1919, he had joined this group called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. This was like a club. It was a political party. He had joined this political party called the National Socialist Germany Workers' Party. And by 1920, he was in charge of it. He was the president. And the short version of National Socialist German Workers' Party, because who wants to say that? Who wants to say, I'm in the National Socialist German Workers' Party? Nobody wants to do that. The short version of this party was Nazi. The Nazi Party, National Socialist German Workers' Party. They called themselves Nazis. And he was the leader. Now, just like Mussolini, do you guys remember Mussolini's black shirts? He would send people out in the streets to beat up anybody that disagreed with him. Well, Hitler did the exact same thing. He set up groups of people to go out and beat up anybody that disagreed with him, but his group were called stormtroopers. Stormtroopers. So Mussolini in Italy, his guys were the black shirts. And Hitler in the Weimar Republic, which is Germany, but it was called the Weimar Republic at the time, Hitler had stormtroopers. Gangs of thugs that just went around and beat up anybody that disagreed with him. Anyone that disagreed with the National Socialist German Workers' Party got beaten up. In 1923, this is when in the first time that the economy had collapsed. Remember, the Germans couldn't afford to pay reparations, so the French came and took over the Ruhr Valley. The Weimar Republic printed out lots of extra money and started just paying the people anyway, even though they weren't working, and the economy collapsed. This is the first time that Hitler became really, really popular, and he attempted a coup d'etat. Hitler tried to overtake the government of the Weimar Republic. He failed, he was caught, and he was sent to prison. While he was in prison, he wrote a book called Mein Kampf. And Mein Kampf in English means my struggle. This book became like the holy book of the Nazis. And it talked all about Nazi goals and Nazi ideology. Ideology is thinking, ways of thinking. If you're a Nazi, this is what you think. And man, it was full of extreme nationalism. It was really racist. It's anti-Semitic. This means Jews and against the Jews. It taught that Germans are the superior race, and he calls them Aryans. The superior race on Earth are Aryans, and Aryans are Germans. And he taught that the Aryans' greatest enemy is the Jew. Greatest enemy of the Aryans is the Jew. Now, Jews have been discriminated in Europe ever since the Middle Ages. They have always been the scapegoat. If something goes bad, it's the Jews' fault. If the economy is doing bad, it's the Jews' fault. Anything bad that happens, it's the Jews' fault. They've always been that scapegoat since the Middle Ages. And ever since the rise of nationalism in the 1800s, this was the big rise of nationalism began in the 1800s. Ever since then, Jews have been seen as the outsider. There's always, Jews never belong. They're always the outsider, and nobody likes them because nationalists are always my people first. One other thing about Hitler, when we're talking about the Jews, for Hitler, it wasn't so much about religion for him. He actually saw them as a different race. They just as much as my skin looks different from a bunch of you, whatever race you are, he thought that Jews were a completely different race and they were inferior. They were like dirty, gross, inferior race. And Hitler considered anyone that had even one grandparent that was Jewish, then you're a Jew also, and you're dirty and you're awful and you're responsible for all the problems of society. Let's see here. The right wing, we're talking politics here, the right wing. Once again, sorry, it's really important that you know this. The left, the extreme far left in politics is communism. The extreme far right in politics is fascist. And anyone from here to here is considered right wing. And the further and further and further right you get, you're considered more extreme. Over here, this would be the extreme right wing. But the right wing of the Weimar Republic, they had these conspiracy theories for why Germany lost World War I. And they were really, really popular theories. There were theories that it was all because of the Marxists. There were theories that it was all corrupt politicians. There were theories that it was corrupt businessmen. And there were theories that it was the Jews. It was all the Jews' fault. And Hitler, who is extreme way over here, extreme right wing, and an extreme nationalist, Hitler wanted all Germans everywhere to unite as one nation. And to achieve this goal of all Germans joining together in one nation, they needed one strong ruler. Well, that one strong ruler was a Führer. And of course, Hitler wanted to be the Führer. Less than a year after being released from prison, Hitler was like almost immediately back in the spotlight. He was popular again. Everybody liked him. And things were going great. Well, that's when the Great Depression hit. 1929, Great Depression hit. Remember how I said everyone's freaking out because they're all afraid it's going to be as bad as it was in 1923 again. People are freaking out. It's terrible. This is a great time for a strong leader to come up when everybody's afraid. And that happened. Veterans loved Hitler. Workers loved Hitler. The lower classes loved Hitler. Businessmen loved Hitler. Everybody, not everybody, but it's a lot of people loved Hitler. Hitler promised to end reparations. He said, we are going to quit paying France and Great Britain. He promised to forget everything they agreed to in the Treaty of Versailles, and he promised to create jobs. And at this time, here I'm drawing my political thing again, left wing, right wing, centrist. Remember the Weimar Republic was mostly a centrist government. Well, more and more and more communists are winning seats in the government. And more fascists are winning seats in the government. More right wing, more left wing, less center. Well, the right wing, even the ones that were over here on the scale, not quite fascist, these guys, they were so afraid of the communists. The right was so fearful of the left that they put their support behind Hitler. Even though a whole bunch of them didn't really like Hitler, they just thought he would be better than the left. And eventually, Hitler was made Chancellor of the Weimar Republic. That was in 1933. Within 1 year, Hitler had named himself dictator of Germany. This was, so 1934, I'm going to start a new page. 1934, Hitler declared self dictator of Germany. This was now the end of the Weimar Republic and the beginning of Nazi Germany. Weimar Republic is gone. Now we've got a dictator named Adolf Hitler, and his new country is Nazi Germany. He purged. We know what the word purge means because we learned it from Stalin. Hitler purged anyone that disagreed with him. They were all gone, all of them killed. Purged anyone that disagreed with him, and he stopped all political parties except his one. There's one political party in all of Germany, and it is his Nazi party. He strongly appealed to nationalism. And he constantly reminded people of how great Germany had been in the past, and he's going to make it great again. This was big. Hitler was, we are going to make Germany great again. Make Germany great again. And he had this big thing about making Germany great again. Germany was great once before during the First Reich. Reich means like government, sort of. That's not the literal translation. A kind of land, state, country is what Reich means. The First Reich was Germany during the Roman Empire. The Second Reich was Germany in 1871 under a guy named Bismarck. And Hitler said that his was going to be the Third Reich. Germany was going to be great again. It was going to be as great as it was during the Roman Empire. It was going to be as great as it was in 1871. Hitler's Third Reich. He also said that the German people are going to rule Europe for 1,000 years. So Hitler did some good things for Germany, to combat the Great Depression, he made all kinds of public works programs. Public works means jobs that are paid for by the government. He put people out building roads, building dams, cleaning trash. I don't know. He just took somebody that didn't have a job and made up a job and gave it to them and paid them to do it. And Hitler was dedicated to rearming Germany. He wanted to build the army up again. He planned to unite Germany and Austria as one nation. And Hitler himself had actually, he was of German descent, but he was born and raised in Austria. Like Hitler's parents were German, but they moved to Austria, and that's where he was raised, was in Austria. But at 18, he had gone to Germany to join the army to fight for Germany in World War I, and that's when he stayed. Sorry, he stayed in Germany after that. So he was going to, he did all these public works programs to help get people out, help get Germany out of the Great Depression. He was rebuilding the army. He said he was going to unite Germany and Austria, and he encouraged people to hate the Treaty of Versailles. When he gave speeches, he talked about how awful the Treaty of Versailles was, and everyone listened. So Germany became a totalitarian state. Totalitarian state. You all remember what a totalitarian state is. It's when the government controls every aspect of your life. They tell you what art you can listen to, what art you can look at, what music you can listen to, what clothes you can wear, how you can cut your hair, plus all the political stuff. They controlled everything. They controlled religion. They controlled education. Everything was controlled by the Nazi Party. Hitler's elite soldiers in like his cultural war were called the SS. They dressed in all black and they would do anything he said. These guys, the SS, would march down streets. It's what his stormtroopers turned into. Used to be stormtroopers, now they're the SS. He had secret police. Hitler's secret police were called the Gestapo. And once again, just like all kinds of other evil leaders like this, Hitler sent his secret police and murdered, tortured, imprisoned anyone that disagreed with him. Disagree with Hitler, you're gone. In 1935, absolute fanatic anti-Semitism was rampant in Germany. And when I say fanatic, I mean everyone hated the Jews. They were just seen as like rats. They were awful human beings, and everything that was wrong with Germany, it was all the Jews' fault. And people just believed this. There was this massive propaganda war against the Jews, and the people, the German people, believed that all the problems that Germany was having, it was all because of the Jews. It was all their fault. And in 1935, Hitler passed the Nuremberg Laws. The Nuremberg Laws stripped Jews of their citizenship. If you were Jewish and living in Germany, you were no longer a citizen. No citizenship. Made a law that Jews could only marry Jews. They weren't allowed to marry outside of the Jewish community. They weren't allowed to attend German schools. They were not allowed to work in the government. They were not allowed to be lawyers, not allowed to practice law. They were not allowed to be doctors. Medicine. And they were not allowed to publish books. So Hitler made the there's supposed to be an N there. It's the Nuremberg laws. And this was in 1935, Hitler made this law that said Jews are stripped of their German citizenship. They're not allowed to marry anyone that's not Jewish. They're not allowed to go to German schools. They're not allowed to work in the German government. They're not allowed to practice law. They're not allowed to practice medicine, and they're not allowed to publish books. People, gangs of Germans would walk through the streets and beat up Jews. They'd beat them up. They would smash the windows on their businesses. It was really bad. That was 35. 3 years later, in 1938, a young Jewish guy in Paris, there was this young Jewish guy in Paris, and his parents had been treated badly by the Nazi Party. Well, this guy saw some German diplomats in Paris, and he didn't kill them, but shot and wounded one of them. And Hitler used this as an excuse, and he encouraged Germans everywhere to attack Jews. And November 8th and 9th, 1938 is called Kristallnacht. In the Kristallnacht, Germans beat up, tortured, killed, and destroyed the businesses of Jews in Austria, Germany, parts of the Czech Republic. This is a very, very famous night in history, Kristallnacht. And Hitler then began plans with the people that were very close to him, working on the final solution. The final solution was to exterminate all Jews. So this is when Hitler started talking about the final solution. He had groups, just like Mussolini had youth groups for kids after school. Hitler had the same thing, and they were called the Hitler Youth. And he completely brainwashed these young kids to believe extreme Nazi propaganda and to believe it and to do anything Hitler says. He taught the children racism. He taught them to destroy the enemy with no mercy. Children had to pledge their lives to the Nazi Party. And they had to be in great physical shape. They did all kinds of exercising all the time. So they were in really, really good shape. And so that was the youth. Women, Hitler had the same kind of the same take on women as Mussolini did. And upper class women, upper class Aryan women were encouraged to have as many babies as they could. We are going to populate the world with the Aryan race. And just like Mussolini did, if upper class Aryan women had a whole bunch of babies, they got a reward for it. Women, lower class, like poor women, they still worked because they were just seen as like working animals. But the upper class women, they lost their jobs. Their jobs were replaced by men, and they were to go home and make babies. Hitler wanted to cleanse the German culture. Cleanse means to clean. He wanted to get rid of anything that he thought was dirty, anything that was making the German culture dirty. He hated modern art. He said that modern art was corrupted by the Jews. He hated jazz because it was Black people that did jazz, and he was super racist against Blacks. At the same time that Hitler was rising to power in Germany, really, really strict authoritarian dictators were popping up all over Eastern Germany. Do you guys remember the whole Serbia? The Serbians wanted to be, Serbians wanted liberation during World War I. Well, they got their liberation, but now there are little pockets of different cultures inside there that want their own freedom. So nationalism is rising up all across Eastern Europe. You've got these really, really strong authoritarian dictators popping up all over Eastern Europe. And so there we are. You talked about Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler. And you have to keep in mind that all of this is happening at the exact same time. Mussolini's coming to power in Italy, and Stalin's coming to power in the Soviet Union, and Hitler's coming to power in the Weimar Republic, now the Third Reich. And also all across the rest of Eastern Europe, let me show, okay, so Poland, the Czech Republic, it wasn't called Czechia at the time. It wasn't even the Czech Republic, it was Czechoslovakia. And this, you see Czechia and Slovakia, this was Czechoslovakia, it was one country. Hungary, down here, Serbia, Romania, all of these countries, strong authoritarian dictators have taken control, and they've got extreme nationalistic pride that's pushing them. You've got Mussolini, you've got, where are we? I have to move over a little further. Mussolini, you've got Stalin, you've got Hitler, you've got big, strong, authoritarian dictators all coming here, and we're getting closer and closer and closer to all of it exploding into war. We're finished. I'll see you in class soon.